I mean, I don't know if you heard the director there. He's counting me down. 2, 1. He said go. He gave me the thumbs up. Justin, our new guy. Hey, thanks, Justin, for being there.
No problem.
I always love giving him a shout out. Hey, welcome him to Kickin' It with Matthew, with this guy, Pastor Matthew, right here.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Been a good Monday so far?
It's been a very good Monday so far.
Now, real quick before we start, every single Kickin' It with Matthew, you have, that's a new mug? Is that a new Yeti?
Well, actually, yes. I got it for Christmas.
I like
from
that.
one of my daughters.
I like that a whole lot. I wasn't a Yeti believer, and then I got the big 36-ounce
Yes.
for Father's Day. I am now a Yeti believer.
Now, I have a few Fetties.
Like from Walmart?
Fake Yeti.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, several of those thermoses.
Yeah. Fetty's also a rapper, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, that's great.
So, but are you, every single Kickin' It with Matthew that we've done, this is like our 11th one now. You come in with a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. And I am also a coffee in the afternoon guy. Does caffeine affect you in like the evening times when you try to go to bed?
Well, this is decaf, actually.
Okay, so you're perfect.
You know, I don't know if it's a placebo or power of suggestion thing, but I don't have caffeine beyond noon.
Okay. I usually do up till about 1:30. I'll do a half calf after, like I have the half calf pods, and I'll pop them in the Keurig, and then I'll do one of those right around 1:30.
So you live on the wild side.
I do. I live on the wild side, but I don't sleep a whole lot anyway. Maybe that's why I don't sleep a whole lot. Is that half a cup of coffee of caffeine?
Okay.
I've tried all the things. Trust me. And you'll notice now with Kickin' It with Matthew, we have my camera right there. We have our big wide shot right there. And then we have Matthew's camera right there.
Okay.
Can we screen grab that, please? That was fantastic. That was great. Thank you, Matthew. So what we normally do on Kickin' It with Matthew is we kind of dive a little bit deeper into the past weekend and kind of the things that we've been studying here at Bay Hope. And we've been in this series, Holy Roar. Actually, the last Kickin' It with Matthew, you introduced Holy Roar, the book based off of I can never remember the guy's name, and Chris Tomlin.
Darren Whitehead.
And
thank Chris
you.
Tomlin.
There it is right there, Holy
right
Roar.
Here. And I encourage you, go ahead and get it. Kindle or you know, the actual real analog version. It's a little book, as you can see, and it's a pretty quick read, but we've already heard from a lot of people, Pastor Andy, that have acquired the book, and they're either using it personally, just through the series, or they're doing it with their group. And the deal is, at the end of each chapter, there's a series of kind of digging deeper passages of Scripture beyond the ones that I'll use on the weekend. There's also a lot of like questions, just to kind of get you to ponder more about how you can interact with the material. Because what we're doing is we're just using each of these like little mini chapters. They're about 2 pages each, kind of.
Basically.
As a launching pad to go into much more detail in each of the messages every week.
So yesterday you shared a story about Halal, which was our second week. Halal meaning kind of the unabashed David dancing with extraordinary...
to rave, to shine, to celebrate,
there we go.
To boast.
There we go.
To be clamorously foolish.
Which the foolish thing is the thing that I'm very good at, as you so rightfully pointed out yesterday. But you shared a story of you were in Cuba, is that what it was? When they started talking about they had raised enough funds and all that. And
that one was in Tanzania.
Tanzania, yes, yeah. Tanzania. And I wanted to kind of throw this out to you. Did you have any other stories that were in your head that you kind of had to leave on the cutting room floor for that moment of the sermon? Because that one obviously illustrated it, but you're very well traveled.
Well, yes, and some as well that come to mind you'll hear in some upcoming weeks regarding worship experiences in Tanzania and Cuba, and with a whole bunch of Chinese pastors as well when I was in Asia. And I guess one that kind of got left on the cutting room floor regarding celebration and worship in a halal fashion was when we got to worship, and the team that went remembers this. This is several years ago. The church under the mango tree had this. In fact, some B-roll of that church.
Do we have it somewhere?
We've got it because it was used in one of our pre-service B-roll videos.
Okay.
For
Was it
a
the one
few
with all the
months.
colorful houses? Is that, am I placing it in the right?
It may be the right one,
Okay.
but this was a church way outside of Guantanamo. It was out in the boonies in the countryside. Even where we parked the car, we had to like take a little hike to get back to it. And it was a church that had over really 100 people, but they had no actual church sanctuary, no structure building, but they were worshiping in a house. A lot of the Cuban churches there are in houses. And this church could not meet in the house anymore except for like discipling or leadership meetings, things like that, because it was so large. And so they worshiped outside under a mango tree. And we came up upon the scene. They were already starting worship before our particular cohort arrived.
Okay.
From Bay Hope Church. And up on the patio of this house was the pastor and this little band. And they were going at it. And there was one guy there who was playing maracas.
Okay.
Is that the shaking?
Yeah, yeah.
Maracas.
Yeah.
And we were having fun, and everybody's laughing and kind of just singing, and it was kind of pre-celebratory celebration, so it was a little casual as well. And so I was like, man, I want to join in on this. So I went up to the man who was playing maracas, because that's the only thing that I could actually grab and like,
Sure.
I could at least keep a rhythm.
Sure.
And so I asked, can I play? And this guy leans over to me and says, he's blind. And here I am stealing maracas from a blind man.
Oh.
And just, being clamorously foolish, shaking those maracas. In fact, that's what's on the B-roll footage is me playing those maracas.
Okay, I do
and
remember
most people
that.
don't know that I just stole them from a blind man as I was saying, can I borrow those?
So when you go to bayhope.tv, you will see that B-roll running in the top little section right there. The next time you see those maracas, just remember, Pastor Matthew stole those.
From a blind man.
From a blind man, no less.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is clamorously foolish. So that's a great story. And if Pastor Matthew referenced the questions at the back of the book, the questions at the back of each chapter. And one of the
Right.
questions I wanted to bring to you, because I think it's reflective of our church culture as it is. And so one of the things that you talked about a couple of weeks ago was that people can be reserved in their worship of the Lord, particularly during song, but in everything
Sure.
else as well. Why is it that people feel so, I don't want to say ashamed, but why do they feel less than capricious when they're worshiping the Lord? Like, what is that all about?
Let's see, how long do we have?
Yeah.
Maybe we got an hour.
I mean,
I can unpack that.
Technically, YouTube allows us to stream for 24 hours, so let's go.
Well, one of the things is obviously, pretty cultural. There's an understanding that in different parts of the world and different cultural expressions, some people are just more emotive, more expressive in all aspects than in other cultural expressions. And so, obviously, if you're in Tanzania, if you're in Cuba or some other Latin cultures as well, there is more emotive expressiveness in not just worship, but in just human interactions and in normal ways that we go about relationships. For instance, there was a study done several years ago by sociologists that looked at patterns of physical touch in public spaces. And they did most of their work in observational studies of people in restaurants and coffee shops in several different countries around the world.
It's pre-COVID.
This is years ago.
Okay.
And so they were actually logging how many times someone touched someone else. Now, this could have been a hug when they greeted,
Sure.
or while they're talking, just people, just people tapping an arm or something like that. Well, they found that I'm trying to remember what was the most expressive country in terms of actual physical touch during an hour of interaction?
I'm going to guess Italy, something
Well,
like that.
Italy was high on the list, but I think it was a Spanish-speaking country. I believe it was a Latin American company.
Like Argentina, maybe?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
that would make sense.
I just do remember the least physically touching country. It was Great Britain.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
Oh, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was the most high-touch culture.
I could see that.
And my best friend, George Acevedo,
Yeah.
he's preached here before. I can attest to that. He's always just like touching.
Yeah.
And Great Britain. So Pastor Keith, I guess, is the least physically expressive.
He's not. He bucks that trend
He
pretty
does.
hardcore because everything for
does.
him is a high five or a fist bump or something. Huh, that's interesting.
But that's one reason. Is that part of it's just cultural.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another reason, though, is what I expressed this Sunday talking about halal, and that is that some people are not fully embracing or fully aware of the reality of the depth of grace and kindness that God has shown them to forgive their sins and to release them from guilt and shame, assure them of heaven, and therefore there's no real external or even sometimes just internal celebration because they don't know how much that, yes, they should be celebrating. And so it's a theological barrier, a theological barrier of ignorance. I wouldn't even call it arrogant so much as just kind of ignorant and not celebrating, therefore, the reality that, wow, I'm radically saved. I've got a lot to celebrate here.
It's almost an apathy, if you think about it, a spiritual apathy. And I think a lot of us are prone to that, even those that have been saved for years and years.
Yeah. And a lot of us were obviously conditioned by the experience we had. Those of us who are churched folks, we've been church broken as we were raised. And so we were raised in certain traditions.
Right.
And we talked about this, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, introing this series. Because I did not grow up in a church where you had any, real physical demonstrations, let alone raising a hand or, moving or clapping hands in worship of anything like that. I came into that experience later in life. So for some people, they're just being kind of authentic to the way they were raised and their church tradition. And so they don't even give it a thought, or they may look at some more expressive worship and go, that's weird. Those people are strange. So that's why at the end of the first message regarding Yodal, which is to shoot one's hand up in worship, I said, let's not be judgmental. Let's not, shame worship people. But just this is an invitation to release, an invitation to lose some inhibition about maybe raising a hand or so in worship.
So how then, I guess the follow-up to that is there I don't want to say a formula, but is there a way that we as a church can continue, to encourage worship of all kinds, of all flavors, of all spaces and all that, without having a judgmental spirit about it? Like what's the way that you as the lead pastor can go about kind of showing that, other than just saying it over and over and over?
That's really the only way. I mean, just, by preaching messages occasionally that talk about worship and the heart of worship and the nature of worship, as well as in our worship leaders, like Mike or Melissa or Zach or Whitney, Danny,
Erica,
Erica, all those folks who, just give people freedom to worship, whatever that looks like. Because like I said, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, I would almost, someone not have any physical expression of worship, sort of in a visible hands up way, but be so radically worshiping in their heart, even if it's kind of in a non-emotive way, than someone who's like physically going at it, but, maybe very, very shallow or just like showy, about it. So, I mean, God looks at more of the motives of our heart than any external markers in our lives. But it's great when the heart and the physical expression can match in an authentic way. you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yet Paul did say, you know, he spends 1 Corinthians 14 talking about this, and church tradition over 2,000 years have dealt with this, about, you know, what is an appropriate balance of just going like wildly expressive in a worship service, or just completely frozen and very stoic in a worship service. And Paul talked about that. He said, you know, things are to be done in order. Things aren't to be chaos, or things aren't to be confusing or random in a worship service. That yes, it should be inspired and informed by the Spirit, but also the reality that the Spirit mediates through us in our minds and in our forms as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that's what we try and experience here, which if you were in the connection with us on Sunday, or you can, you know, catch it on demand, there was that phrase I used, and I'll try and get it right, you know, without my notes. All head and no heart, we puff up.
Right? All heart.
All heart and no head, we blow up. But head and heart together, we grow up.
Yes. You nailed it.
So, you know, because Paul talked about that. He talked about it in Scripture. If it's just about knowledge, you know, then you get all this, you know, puffed up sense of self and superiority. But if it's all just about, you know, the wild abandonment of the heart, he said that's, you know, God is not a God of chaos. And so Paul was a great advocate for head and heart together.
Yes,
that was his
absolutely.
ministry.
Absolutely. In the couple of seconds we have left here, do you have a sneak preview of this weekend? I know some stuff that I don't necessarily want to reveal to our fine viewers and listeners right now, but do you have anything that you want to share with the congregation here?
Sure. This weekend, the Hebrew word is zamar. Zamar.
Zamar.
And that the subtitle for this message is The Music of Praise. Now, we're also going to have in a few weeks a message that's based on another Hebrew word that is the songs of praise.
Right.
And so we'll talk about some of that distinction. But I'm really looking forward to this Sunday, because yes, I'm going to be delivering the message, but I'm going to have joining me for a while a very special guest that I'm very excited to be doing a little bit of kind of an interview for a little bit of this message with. So you got to connect this Sunday and check it out.
That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is called a tease. That's what we do. We try to bring you into our church culture so that you can share all of these fine things. Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. If you haven't already, make sure that you check out everything on bayhope.tv, weeks 1 and 2 of Holy Roar. They've been fantastic so far. I've really enjoyed the series. It's only been 2 weeks, but as a former worship pastor myself, this is kind of speaking to the very fiber of who I am and who I was. So that's been great.
Yeah, you would geek out over a series like this.
This is one that I've been working on some new stuff for In Plain Speech, a new podcast that we're starting tomorrow and then all throughout our weeks. But some follow-up things to this, and it's just been unearthing all of these papers and all of this stuff that I've written over the past 12 years of doing this. So it's going to be, I'm excited just to get to teach.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of response.
Yeah,
we're getting a lot of good feedback on this.
One question, since I've been back here and not been able to be either at Lakeshore or at West Chase, what has the feeling in the room been? Has there been more of a freedom, or are we kind of chipping away at that a little bit and watching the congregation start to open up slowly? How do you feel?
People have been walking out in droves in the middle of my message.
Perfect. That's normal.
Just shouting, throwing tomatoes at me.
That's normal.
But
yeah,
no, there really has been a sense of engagement. You know, as a speaker, and you know this as well, you can read the room.
Yeah.
And some rooms are completely dead. You know, like I joked about, I see dead people. But some rooms, there's real energy in the room, and there's a responsiveness in the room. And it's not just people like saying amen or responding in some. You can tell the energy in a room.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's been some great energy in the room.
Yeah. Towards the end of the message, you prayed the salvation prayer, and there was right after that, you read Psalm 150, and there was a real sense of gathering energy in our online area, and you could tell from the amens and kind of the people that were piping up just in the online chat area, and that to me is like this. Hey, we're doing it. We are experiencing all of this as one big Bay Hope family wherever we're at. So Thanks for leading us in that. Hey, we're going to kind of end up kicking it with Matthew on this here Monday, the 22nd of February. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay tuned all throughout this week. Like I said, we have In Plain Speech starting tomorrow. We have a brand new Bible study, online Bible study, where our good friend Lynn Fukutani is going to be leading us through Stephen's history lesson, and you'll have to check more out about that. All the links are going around in all of our socials and all of our emails if you want to join in. That's a Zoom Bible study. We've got the weekday coming out on Wednesday, which is our podcast, another podcast. We've got Figuring It Out coming out on Thursday. We've got a brand new song dropping from Bay Hope Worship on Friday, and that's just the beginning.
I wish you guys would earn your keep around here.
We don't.
Lazy.
I mean, I only work one day a week, and that's on Sundays. I'm not even here really. This is pre-recorded.
Hey,
so
you mentioned Lynn Fukutani.
Yes.
If you don't know Lynn, Lynn's on our staff as our Bible researcher and curriculum writer.
Yes.
And she is the most wonderful Bible geek you will ever meet. And so she really gets to do some deep dives in some really interesting ways. So hope you check it out.
And I remember leading her through her very first online Bible study. She was so nervous. She has blossomed and flourished in the year and change that we've been doing this. And I'm looking forward to the next 6 weeks getting to study with her, and then our Philippians group as well, our young adult small group, everything. It's been awesome. So thanks so much for joining us here on Kicking It with Matthew, and we will see you all throughout this week.